Did you know that there are over 65 million Gen Xers? Yet so few financial advisors focus on Gen X. Why? It's because you aren't rich. Yet. Welcome to the Gen X Money Advisor with Michael Labos, certified financial planner, certified college funding specialist, and founder of Gen X Wealth Partners. This podcast focuses on the specific needs of Gen Xers by a Gen Xer. Get ready to explore topics that will help you get your retirement on track, maximize your dollar towards your child's education, and successfully manage aging parents. We will even sprinkle in a little health and wellness, travel and leisure, and time and stress management. Come and experience the expertise of Michael and his special guests who focus on enhancing the quality of your life today and in the future. Now, on to the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Gen X Money Advisor. And today we are excited to have Evon Mendrin, owner and founder of Optometry Wealth Advisors out in California. And excited to have him on here today to talk about the power of working with a niche advisor. So welcome to the show, Evon.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. I think it'll be fun.
I'm excited to have you on the show here today, Evon, to talk about how you came up with the idea to start Optometry Wealth Advisors. So why don't you just give us a little background on your career?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in this profession for about 8 years now. Started out in one of those big financial entities that most people are familiar with. Spent a couple of years there and learned pretty quickly that that was not the business model I wanted to work in. It was more about selling their financial products instead of providing good financial advice. And so after a couple of years left there, joined a really awesome financial planning firm here in Central California. Spent 5 years there learning from and working with just a great team there before finally deciding to leave that job and open up a financial planning firm of my own and specializing in optometry. And so here we are now, a proud owner of Optometry Wealth Advisors.
So what was the one thing that you said to yourself, this is it, I have to do this by myself? What was the trigger? Because I know what my trigger was. What was your trigger?
I've always felt like in my brain, like since I first started, that I wanted to build something of my own. Like I wanted to build it the way I wanted to do it. So that was always in my mind. And even working at the financial planning firm, as great of an experience as that was always in the back of my mind. Like I want to do things differently. I want to do it in my own vision, in my own way. And I wanted to do it much differently than I saw was being done, even in that great firm. And so talking more and more with my peers and, hearing about their experiences, like I just kept coming back to like, man, I really want to start this and do it in my own way. And eventually it just came time to, the comfort level of my wife and being financially prepared enough to where it made sense. So where we finally said, okay, like let's do this. Like I have this vision. I know what I want to do. Let's do this. And so we just took the leap.
Taking the leap. Yes. It's a big one, but it's an important one, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you don't have any regrets, right?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
So beyond taking the leap, and I want to talk to you about, the optometry specialization, but were there interests other interests that you considered, or how did you settle on optometry?
Yeah, why optometry? I guess it really just started with a fascination. Like I wish I had a better origin story. Like I'm not related to optometrists. I never witnessed an optometrist being wronged. Like I really just started with a fascination, and I always knew I wanted to work with one particular group of people really well. Like I knew I didn't want to try to be all things to everybody. And I was always interested in professional service businesses. And so I thought about this for a long time. And the more I talked to optometrists, the more I learned about the profession and their businesses, the more I read about, listened to about, just the more research I did, the more interested I became. And I thought to myself, okay, this is a group of people that I'm fascinated enough that I can work with them day in, day out. And I felt like they were underserved as a profession. And so I felt like it was a good match, and I felt like I can provide some value to them as an advisor. And so I dove all in.
That's a good point. Underserved. There's so many underserved demographics out there. And I don't think there's enough advisors that take advantage of that. So speaking of underserved, what are their challenges? Why do they need someone like yourself dedicated to them?
Yeah, I think number one, there's just a general sense or feeling that like their time and energy is spent in their profession, working with patients, becoming a better practitioner. If they've owned a practice, it's growing and managing and working in the practice, and then whatever time and energy is left over is with their family. So I think there's sort of a general sense, at least the people that work with me that end up deciding to get into that relationship, it's that they know that's where their time and energy is spent. They know that's what they're best at, and they have all this financial stuff that's happening, and they just want someone to help them make the right decisions and to know that they're on track or seeing some progress in some way. And I think when you get underneath that, okay, what are the actual topics? Student loan is a big one for almost all of them. And the level of that depends on where they're at in their career, but especially earlier in their career, there's a really high cost of education to get through and out of optometry school. And so you're seeing optometrists with well over $200,000 of student debt, not including what their spouse has. And so making the right decision with student loans and other debt, practice debt, the mortgage is important to them. Taxes, I think, is something that's important to almost every optometrist, and probably everyone, really. Any client of ours is going to feel that. But a line I hear over and over and over again is, my accountant's great, they're great, but they only tell me what happened last year. Like there's no sense of proactively planning around taxes, proactively seeing how the tax year would shape up, proactively, there's this sense of they have to rush at tax time or rush in December to try to figure out what to do. And there's no sense of a proactive plan. So that sense around managing taxes better is important to almost all of them. Understanding for those who are practice owners, understanding what their financials are telling them, like what's happening in their business from a financial standpoint. It's not their fault that they're unaware of that sometimes, because they go to school for optometry and they're not really taught practice management or financial statement analysis. So just helping them understand that a little bit better and understand how cash flow moves through their business and then into their household and what to do with it once it gets to their household. So really just kind of understanding, okay, what happens in their practice and how does it affect their household finances and vice versa. I think those are some of the biggest challenges. And I think this, one more thing I'll say is, I think this probably applies to everybody too, but it's just having a sense of someone is looking and monitoring their finances ongoing so that they can focus on the stuff they're best at and important to them.
I totally agree. I do. I mean, you just nailed the head on the nail there. Question here. So,
yeah.
In terms of those challenges that you just mentioned, and specifically looking at the student loan issue, because that's across the board. How are you able to help them? What can you provide in terms of helping them reduce that burden?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with knowing, I guess, sort of knowing their career trajectory and knowing where their income levels are at and knowing what student loan strategies probably apply to them more than teachers or any other profession. Because a lot of times student loan strategy is driven by income or potential income. And of course, there's a lot of other stuff, family size, future career goals, whether they want to start a practice. But so a lot of it is determined by their career decisions and what their income trajectory is going to be. And so knowing how their career and some of the career decisions and how they'll play out is important to figuring out, okay, I know how I'm going to approach the student loan decision. And that's one thing, just from that student loan part. And I think about even myself as a general practitioner, like I didn't know anything about student loans back in the day when I was working with everybody. And it's overly complicated and unreasonably complicated. And I think
that's by design.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's unreasonably complicated and it's not like traditional debt planning. And me as an advisor in the past, working with as a generalist, like I had no clue what to do with them until I really started digging in and getting that knowledge and experience. That's what comes with working with a specific group of people, is you dive into those topics, those issues that are important to them, and you're able to learn more and provide better advice because of it.
Without a doubt. So, not to put you on the spot here, but I mean, how much money have you saved your clients over time? I mean, just to give an idea for people, the impact that you're making.
I don't have a number to be honest with you. What I'll say, I guess, is that one thing that comes with that is a sense of clarity around knowing what to do with it.
Sure. You can plan around it. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a conversation recently with someone who, they didn't really have a clear plan when they graduated. And so they're just sort of switching from payment plan to payment plan. And there was never, several years later, you don't see much progress in the student loans. And there's a lot of frustration that's involved with that. I mean, when you're not seeing much progress in tackling those loans. And so having a plan as early as possible is sort of clarity, I think is one of the biggest benefits of that.
So let me ask you this question. When you were about to make the leap of faith, did people think you were crazy? I mean, how many optometrists are in Central California, Evon? Isn't your scope pretty small there?
That is a great question, and it depends who you talk to. So friends and family who either aren't in finance or don't own businesses, yeah, they're like, why would you work with optometrists? What are you doing? So even probably my old coworkers probably would wonder, like, why would you focus on that? But most of the other financial advisors that I work with, like, they sense they've heard enough of niching down and specializing, like they're doing it themselves. So a lot of the other my peers, you understand that. So a lot of my peers now are get it. They get the power of specializing. What was your other question?
Oh no, just people thought you're crazy, because I got a lot of people, peers of mine. They didn't say I was crazy. They were like, "Really? You're really gonna do that? Okay,
yeah,
all right, good luck with that."
So one other thing you mentioned was geography. Well, it's not really about how many optometrists are here in the Central Valley of California. It's how many optometrists are in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
So
I get that too. Yeah.
I mean, you open yourself up to, anyone who's searching for an advisor for their particular situation. It doesn't matter where the geography is for a lot of them now. It's just, can they solve my problems? And I've seen that with optometrists. Most of my clients are not in California.
That's awesome.
So that's just what happens when you're able to serve a group of people. Geography really doesn't matter. It's really about, well, can you solve their needs?
I 100% agree with that. It's not about just where you live. It's about having a national client base.
Yeah.
So this is a question that I get a lot, because this is one of the reasons why my peers thought I was a little nuts going niche. What do you do with a client or a prospect that's not part of your niche? How do you handle that scenario?
This is easy. There are so many great advisors working with all different types of people. It is so easy to refer them to someone else. I mean, I either know people who work, whoever that person is, I either know someone who works with that type of person really well, or I can ask around to my peers and find someone really quickly, or I can send them to NAPFA, National Association of Personal Financial Advisors, or the XY Planning Network. Like there's associations you can send people to search for someone, but there's so many great advisors doing great work for all types of people. It's really easy to refer them on to someone else, and I can be confident that they'll be taken care of.
I think that's the power of being niche, recognizing that we come from a position of there's enough fish in the sea. We're not, to illustrate that, 5 years ago, if you said that I was going to be hosting a podcast talking to another advisor about their business, I would say, no, why would I do that? He's a competitor. Why would I share ideas with him? That makes no sense.
Yeah.
But that's the opposite of what you should be thinking, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can share ideas.
It's that abundance mentality. And, it just sort of internally in the profession, that moves us towards being a more established real profession. It's not about competition. It's about collaboration and learning from one another.
Without a doubt. My peers are like, so if someone came to you with this much money and this is their scenario, you would not take them on as a client? I said, most likely I would not. And they look at me perplexed.
Yes.
They gave me this dumbfounded look. And I said, well, think about that. That's the power of being niche. I don't only want to work with my niche, because what we focus on a daily basis is very specialized, but we know it.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get that experience, as the client. So I want to segue here to talk about, our similarities of both being niche and, how that has improved our practices. So how long have you been working by yourself?
It's about a year now.
Year now. Okay.
Yep.
So over the past year, comparing your overall satisfaction with the job, your client satisfaction versus your previous position, how would you compare the two?
Satisfaction is, I was pretty happy working in my other firm. I think the frustration really that I felt was more about like, I really wanted to build this business in my own image. So now that I'm doing that, the satisfaction has gone up. Like I feel much better about my work, flexibility in doing things the way I want, making changes in the practice really quickly if I want to.
Yeah. That's nice, right?
Yeah.
You want to try a new idea, portfolio, marketing, an event. We make all the decisions, and there's pros and cons with that. But having total ownership and control, I think that's a big bonus. And I know that my clients, appreciate the specialization and focus that I have on needs that are specific to them, because you can't be the master of all domains. You can't know everything. And if you say you do, then you're just lying to yourself and your clients. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think even internally, like feedback from one client, applies to most, if not all of your other clients. So like you can make changes in the way you do things in the practice based on that feedback, knowing like, okay, this will benefit all of my other clients. If I, and that's the same thing with like researching something for one client, like, that experience, that research will apply to most, if not all of your other clients.
Without a doubt.
And I just remember times where I'd research something for one client, knowing I'd never use it ever again, and then like how much time and energy is wasted on that type of effort of researching something, spending a lot of time looking at something for one person, knowing it will never apply to anyone else. And so you get some internal efficiencies, and I think the patient or the client experience gets better because you're getting feedback from one or a few of your clients that will apply to most, if not all of your others.
Without a doubt. You don't mind doing that research because it just goes in the knowledge bank, right?
Yeah.
You can bring it out because it's going to happen again because you're dealing with a specific group of people.
Yep.
Another thing that we have in common, Evon, is that we're both certified financial planners, and you hold the student loan professional designation, right?
Yep.
And I hold the certified college funding specialist designation. So even though that we're both have different niches, we both have CFP, we both have an education, we'll call it designation. You help your niche pay off loans. With my niche being Gen X, I'm trying to help them pay or figure out how to fund their kids' education.
Yeah.
And another thing that's interesting, I don't have any optometrists as clients. I'm not anti-optometrist. I just haven't had the opportunity to work with one yet.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that you have some Gen X clients, right?
Yeah.
But it's just interesting that there's always going to be some overlap. But that's the power of being niche, is you can, if there's a situation that you can't handle, just delegate to some other advisor.
Yeah.
I always joke with people about, you go to a doctor and let's say you have your PCP doctor, you go for your physical. He says, well, Mike, you've got this issue with your foot. And they send you to a podiatrist who is a doctor who specializes in a niche, right? I find it hard to believe that a lot of people don't research for niche advisors. A lot of people work with general practitioners who, try to be the jack of all trades, and I think they're missing out on opportunities. So, speaking of missed opportunities, is there a story that you could add to this discussion about how your specialization really helped a particular individual?
Yeah, I think back to one of my earlier clients, and they do own a practice. They were practicing maybe for about 10 years now, and one of the biggest things he was feeling was that same line of taxes. Like, okay, I'm only being told what's happening last year. I don't really have, it's like pulling teeth to try to get a projection done. I feel like I'm rushing at tax time to try to do stuff. Like, how do I work more proactively around taxes and really just about finances overall? So understanding how their practice worked and the structure of their entity and how that affects the household, like we were able to start to plan around that. So just started with basic understanding of what does their practice look like from a structure and a financial standpoint. But then you start to dig in, and there's frustrations about, feeling like there's not enough cash in their life. Like they're tight, everything's tied up in retirement accounts. So then you can start to talk about cash flow in the practice and building cash buffers there and in the household. So if you have a good understanding of how that business works, you can speak better to that. And I think one of the funnest part of that conversation are things that I actually refer them for. Because you start to talk to that person about the frustrations in their business. Because all of our financial stuff, the things we work with I feel like are really life decisions wrapped up. It's financial conversations wrapped up in life decisions. And so you start to talk to them about their business and their frustrations about it and how it's affecting their life, that they feel like they can't get out of it and take vacations because they'll lose money because they're not working in the practice. So you start to get these frustrations. And I've had enough conversations with other doctors. I've listened to enough conversations about practice management. I've heard enough consultants talk about these things to where I can say, I've heard this before. I've heard this before. I've heard how other people have handled it, and I know what's possible. Now, I'm not a practice consultant. I'll never pretend to be, but I can at least tell that person, here's some things I've heard, how they've solved it, what's possible. But here are some people you really need to talk to about these things, because I've gotten to know resources of practice consultants and bookkeepers for your specific situation that can help you out. So just being able to sort of get those frustrations out of their head, being able to talk to that in a way that's educated, I guess, and to be able to guide them on where to go, I think that's been a pretty big benefit.
I'd say you're definitely not going to get that perspective from a general practitioner. And I'm not trying to rag on general practitioners, but I think as a consumer out there, I think there's definite power of working with a niche advisor.
Yeah.
And this leads me to my financial tip of the week, which is to shop and vet any potential financial advisor that you're going to work with. I think understanding who you're talking to and their experience can, really help you find the right advisor. And there's a couple ways that you can do that. Actually, a few. One is you can go to advisorinfo.sec.gov. You can research an advisor. You could also go to FINRA.org and use their broker check tool, which will give you all their licenses, their experience, their work history, any disclosures about their backgrounds. And you could go to CFP.net to find a local certified financial planner like Evon or myself. I think if you use these tools, you have a better idea of who you're working with and if you're working with the right advisor. Don't just go to an advisor based upon a recommendation. Do your own homework. And I think there's lots of value to be had there. So that is the financial tip of the week. So real quick here, Evon, let's talk about the future. So where do you see your practice going in the next few years and then, long term?
Yeah, that's something I've been thinking about. I want to have a entity larger than myself. I don't have a goal of staying solo. Like I'm thinking about somewhere between 3 to 5 advisors. And I guess I don't know exactly what the future holds, but that's sort of what's on my mind. And the reasons why are I want to have a bigger impact in the optometry profession. So it's just going to require a little bit of a bigger business. I also want to have a place for future advisors to be able to learn and grow in. That's a good advice-driven business model. So that's another thing on my mind. And I don't want the business to rely on me entirely. Like to me, freedom is knowing that there's a team behind me that's able to keep the service going so that I can step away when needed. And so I definitely want to take a team approach.
I would agree with that. I mean, we only have so much time and capacity to work with clients. And we all have that number in our head of how many clients we could handle. And if we get to that point, it's going to require growth.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. And to bring on people in an environment where you can foster their growth and have more scope to work with more optometrists, that mirrors my idea as well. I want to work with as many Gen Xers as I can, but there's millions of them.
Yeah. Yep.
I can't handle so many.
Yep.
But no, so even though that we have different niches and different backgrounds, what we're doing, Evon, is very similar, I think. Our approach, understanding the specifics of a niche that, a lot of other advisors, like I wouldn't know what to specifically do with an optometrist. I would know, the basic elements of financial planning, but I wouldn't know how to, look at their practice and from that information, extract some value. And, with Gen X, there might be some things that, you could help them with, but there might be some avenues where you're like, I'm not, 100% certain on this. So that's the power of niche. And like you said earlier, we come from a position of abundance. I'm not competing with you. You're not competing with me. We can share ideas, and it's a good discussion, right?
Yeah.
So for the listeners out there, I hope that you gathered some insight as to, how Evon helps optometrists, as well as the power of working with a niche advisor. And Evon, if people wanted to connect with you, for those optometrists out there, how could they do so?
Yeah, you can find me on my podcast, the Optometry Money Podcast, playing anywhere you get your podcast. You can find me on LinkedIn, pretty active on there. You can also check out my website, optometrywealth.com, and learn a little bit more about me and my background and my firm.
Very good, Evon. You know what? I'm going to share that information with my optometrist.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. And as always, you can find me, the Gen X Money Advisor, on your podcast servers, as well as at genxwealthpartners.com. And I encourage you all to subscribe and not to miss out on another episode, because we try to share a lot of good information. So Evon, thank you for coming on the show here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And I'll talk to everybody soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to the Gen X Money Advisor podcast. Click the follow button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the hosts and/or guests and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Gen X Wealth Partners. This content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional financial advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service providers with any questions you may have regarding your individual situation. Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC, Kestra IS, member FNRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC, Kestra AS, an affiliate of Kestra IS. Gen X Wealth Partners is not affiliated with Kestra IS or Kestra AS.